Keeping with the theme of today, we head over to Ghana, where we are joined by Kwesi Pratt. He's the junior of the Socialist Forum of Ghana. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
To begin, let our audience know what some of the most pressing issues are, which are affecting the working people of Ghana and Africa in general this May Day.
Well, in Ghana, we are implementing the neoliberal agenda. And the neoliberal agenda has meant that many working people have lost access to social services like health, like education, and so on. The neoliberal agenda has also led to massive privatization of state enterprises. And the implementation of the neoliberal agenda has had devastating consequences on the economy of the country as a whole and also on the living and working conditions of people. We are also in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic. And as we speak, Ghana has already recorded 2,074 cases, and the numbers are still rising. We have recorded 16 fatalities, and there are 200 recoveries. Unfortunately, in spite of the advice from the Trades Union Congress, the Ghana Medical Association, and the Socialist Forum of Ghana, government has lifted the temporary lockdown in parts of Accra, which is the capital city, and Kumasi, which is the second largest city. Many companies claim that they are shutting down as a result of the implementation of the social distancing policy. Many working places have told their workers to stay at home. So 50% of workers are staying at home. Many companies are also reducing the remuneration, salaries and wages of workers and so on. So this is the situation we find ourselves in Ghana.
Now, how has Ghana and the region, I know you mentioned COVID-19, but could you explain to us how has Ghana and the region been affected by COVID-19 economically and of course otherwise?
Well, the main problem with the economy is that the factories are closing down, workplaces are closing down, and even the workplaces which are working at 50% capacity. If you take Ghana, for example, the Bank of Ghana estimates that it was projected that Ghana's GDP will grow at 7% this year. Now the Bank of Ghana is projecting that Ghana's GDP would actually grow at 2.5%. That's a huge hit on the economy of Ghana. So there are job losses. People who are working are losing part of their salaries. The working conditions are becoming increasingly difficult, and food supply would also be seriously affected by COVID-19.
Now, I know you sent a May Day message this morning with solidarity messages to Cuba, Venezuela, Iran, and Palestine. What is your message to those nations at this time as they continue to face sanctions?
It's actually criminal for sanctions to be imposed on a country like Cuba, which is not just fighting COVID-19 within Cuba, but it's assisting many countries, including Italy, several countries in Europe, and Africa to combat, COVID-19. I think it's really criminal to impose a blockade on Cuba. Of course, when it comes to Venezuela, it is clear that the imposition of sanctions on Venezuela is part of the regime change agenda of the ruling elite in the United States of America. It is not in the interest of the world. It is not in the interest of the Venezuelan people. It is going to lead to havoc in Venezuela, and we condemn that unreservedly. Of course, we do know that Iran is also facing sanctions because Iran refuses to bow to the interest of the West. Iran refuses to bow to Donald Trump. And because of that, Iran is also facing sanctions and so on. The case in Palestine is a case of harsh colonial occupation by the Israeli authorities. And on May Day, a day for liberation, a day for solidarity, we declare our full, uncompromising solidarity with the people of Palestine fighting against Israeli occupation. Then, of course, there's the case of Western Sahara, which is also facing colonial occupation by Morocco. And our solidarity goes out to the people of Western Sahara resisting Moroccan occupation. It also goes out to the people of West Papua, who have also been colonized and who are resisting colonialism, and to all the Indian Ocean islands in Africa.
Now, another thing you mentioned was the Socialist Forum of Ghana solidarity with liberation struggles. Could you tell us about some of those points and also your position on that?
Well, if you look around the world today, the major sports which are engaged in national liberation, struggles for national liberation, would include Palestine, it would include the Saudi Arab Democratic Republic, it would include West Papua, and of course the Indian Ocean Islands. Our position is clear. No part of the world should be subjected to colonial occupation. No part of the world should be subjected to harsh colonial rule. And in principle, we declare support for all those engaged in national liberation struggles across the world.
Kwesi, and lastly, what is your message for our audience and also the world on this May Day?
This May Day occurs as a very, very significant part in the history of humankind. This May Day is occurring at the time of COVID-19, and we need to intensify our solidarity. The most important message is that we should focus attention on human beings and not profits. Human lives matter. Preserving human health is of absolute importance. Human beings, the welfare of human beings, and not profits. That's our message.
Kwesi, we thank you so much for your time for Telesur English.
Thank you very much.